Say that again, Erica.
I was saying, I think we're all set for you to start.
Okay. Well, hey everybody. Welcome to the KTSE Summer Southeast Chat and Choose. This is the second session, which is entitled "Keep That Same Energy," and we have a special guest to help facilitate with us today. And his name is Dwayne Patterson. He's our VP of Strategy. Thank you for those of you who are coming back for the second time. I recognize some faces, and thank you for the few of you who this is your first time coming. We're going to do everything on time. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and we hope that you all are willing and ready to share because most of this is going to be in the beginning about the things that you bring to the table and bring to the conversation. I have a lovely co-host, Erica Vincent, with me. I'm Michael McMiller, and I'm the student youth organizer. We have Rachel Carter, Blythe, and we also have Linnea, who's going to help co-facilitate the breakout sessions that we have. So please make sure you put your name and your state in the chat. And where do you want to go from here, Erica? Do you want me to pass it back over to you, or should we get into it?
I am now on mute, thankfully. I will, so yes, please place your name and state, city and state in the chat. I'm going to, the next thing in our agenda, you all should have received, if you registered, so you should have received an agenda to today's talk. I'm also excited about our special guests later on. But the next thing on the agenda is for us to go through meeting norms. And I'm also going to take this time to super quickly talk about what we talked about last time. So I will do that. Blythe is going to help us take notes again. So thank you, Blythe, for always being willing to jump in there. So I'm pulling up our norms from last time. I'm also going to post the link in the chat for the notes. You can always follow along with these notes as they're being typed. You will also send them out after the meeting. And you can also come back to this document if you missed one to hear about what we talked about. So I'm gonna take some time to go through the norms super quickly, and then I'm going to also talk about what we went over. So the norms that we had were confidentiality, step up, step back. So that means if you seem to be somebody who talks a lot, talks often, maybe step back and allow some other people who don't speak as frequently. And on the other side, if you're someone who doesn't speak as frequently, maybe step up to say a couple things and add to our conversation, both either in the chat or also verbally. We also save the chat for these afterwards. 3-minute time frame on each speaker if we're going around. There's a lot of you here. Hopefully more and more join us. So let's keep our comments to 3 minutes. Utilizing Zoom reactions and the raised hand option. On the bottom of your Zoom controls, there is reactions. So you can either do a clap or a thumbs up. And then I think there's also like a hand raise option as well for you all. Mine looks a little different as the host. Making sure that we're unpacking acronyms and terms people may not understand. So some of us do this work all the time. Some of us don't do this work every day, even though it's something that's really important to us. So let's make sure that we are unpacking any acronyms that we're using. Is there anything else, any additions that people think that we should add as we meet together? Any norms that folks think that we should add? I think those cover it. Okay, great. So I am going to quickly take us through kind of what we talked about last time. So last time, the theme name of the June 8th Summer Youth Chat and Chew was What's the Tea? And so basically we wanted to talk about what's been going on around our various cities and states how we've been affected, or our families, our neighborhoods have been affected by COVID-19. And then also right before our last session, the racial uprising happened. And so we also have been organically adding that into our conversations around COVID-19 and where we are right now. So we talked about some of the issues that were happening, what folks were seeing. We talked about what folks were seeing kind of in various states and cities. We talked about rural but like rural as opposed to urban spaces that people were seeing, in ways that folks are seeing that those issues coming up. We also talked about some of the ways that leadership or government were handling it or not handling certain things. And folks expressed their frustration there, which I think is super important. And then we divided up into PSE's 4 issue areas, which is health, which is health equity, growth, which is equitable development, opportunity, which is economic inclusion, and energy, which is energy equity. So we talked about the ways that COVID-19, the racial uprising has been showing up in those 4 specific spaces, in the 4 breakout groups that we did. And then we linked to all of these resources and events that folks could join on as they looked at how they could make a difference in their own work. So hopefully that is a good, super quick, and I know my internet sometimes goes out, so I'm gonna turn my video off for a minute. Sorry, that's somebody completely different in my video. It's actually our director, Chandra. This is her account. But sorry if my video has been choppy, but that's what we talked about last time. Does anybody who was here last time want to, I know I went through that really quickly, want to talk about anything that I missed? Okay, great. Well, I'll pass it back to you, Mike. And next, we're supposed to be going into breakout groups.
Yeah, so because of the number of people we have, looks like we're going to have 2 groups and 2 facilitators in each group. And if you all feel comfortable, we're going to record the conversation. And it's only 2 questions. It's very lighthearted, so you don't have to feel like it's a test or anything. But we really want you all to contribute as much as possible. Because once we get out of this portion of the conversation, we're going to be able to use that for the second part of the conversation, the presentation. So, Erica, how do you control like who goes and where?
I am currently looking right now to make sure that we have 2 PSC staffers in each. So, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So in one group we'll have Mike and Blythe, and then in the other group we'll have Linnea and Rachel facilitating our conversations. Our facilitators have their questions. Facilitators, if y'all want to, like, one person maybe take rough notes that you can add for Blythe in the notes document, and the other person wants to kind of talk and facilitate, that might be a good way to split up the duties. Oh, this is perfect. We're a little bit early on time, so this is great. So we're supposed to do this for 20 to 30 minutes. So hopefully you all get some really good conversation out of this, and I will go ahead and split you up. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey. Hello. It's good to be able to talk to you all. Rachel, I was wondering, do you want me to take notes and you ask questions, or do you want me to ask questions and you take notes? Then you can't talk? Okay.
Sorry, I'm down for questions if you would like to do notes and record.
Okay, yeah, cool. I'm recording, so.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I am our Programs and Engagement Administrative Assistant at the Partnership for Southern Equity. I'm super excited to be a part of this group and see all of your faces. It's such a great experience. And Lene, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll continue going around?
Yeah, hi, I'm Linnea. I am working as a Racial Equity Fellow in our Just Growth portfolio at Partnership for Southern Equity, and I'm really excited to be here today with you all.
Niara, would you like to introduce yourself and then name someone else in the group?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Niara. I am a junior computer science student attending North Carolina A&T State University.
So what?
I am a junior computer science student attending North Carolina A&T State University. Yeah, so Emily, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Emily Driscoll. I work for the Southern Environmental Law Center. I do communications for our work in Georgia and Alabama, and I work really closely with Andre and Erica and Chandra at KTSE on especially energy equity issues, and just excited to be here. And I will kick it to Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana. I'm from Chicago, and I go to school at Emory University, where I'm studying environmental science and music, and I'm interested in studying environmental law.
What's going on, man? All right.
Diego? Diego?
Oh, hi, I'm Tiago. I'm a third-year undergrad student at Georgia Tech, studying biochemistry and earth and atmospheric sciences. Franklin?
Yes, I'm Franklin Mack from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a cohort in the Just Energy Academy.
And Kristen.
Hey everyone, my name is Kirsten Cook. I am also with Partnership for Southern Equity. I am the manager for the Just Growth portfolio.
Wonderful. So I'm going to post the question in the chat. And our first question, let me send it to everyone. There we go. Our first question is, how have you seen organizing done in the midst of COVID-19? So is there anything, activities that you're directly involved in, or things that you've experienced, things you've seen on social media even, that you found really exciting or cool, or even challenging during COVID?
I think one of the most recent things that I've been seeing in social media is the ICE's decision to remove all undocumented students from universities, and how quickly people are organizing based on that. I'm really in like the tech activism community, so there's a lot of people developing bots, mailer bots, so they could send like emails to the school's executive board and professors to ask them about creating just random courses, so those people are able to still stay in the United States. That's what I've been seeing. It's been really fast, and there's been a lot of traction on that. So
Yeah, that's super cool. Thanks, Niara. Others? I know that for me, something that I've seen that's really cool has been the kind of level of mutual aid organizing that's happened, to be able to get people essentially their basic needs, as well as be able to provide rental assistance, for example, utility assistance, keep people's lights on, provide things like if people are going to protests and things, provide jail support and the like, and just the level of organization required to do any of those things on a large scale has been incredible, and to also be a part of and involved in those efforts. So that's something that I've really seen that's been awesome. Jari, it looks like you've joined our group. Welcome. Our first question that we're answering right now is, how have you seen organizing done in the midst of COVID? So if you have any thoughts on that, definitely feel free to chime in. And you can also introduce yourself if you'd like.
Yes, give me one moment. Okay, here we go. Having some technical difficulties, I apologize. Hello, my name is Jari Parker, and I am from Greensboro, North Carolina. And could you repeat the question one more time? I apologize.
That's okay. How have you seen organizing done in the midst of COVID-19?
And you said organizing what?
How have you seen it done? If there's any organizing that you've like witnessed or been a part of, or if that was interesting.
Oh, okay. I got what you're saying now. Usually when it comes to like just organizing, I guess it just it goes back towards, I guess, like things that's been going on here where I've been, where people have been like coming together to help those in need, pretty much. Like also, I don't know too much about it, but like just as like a general answer, just something like that. I apologize.
That's okay. That's fine. That's really important. Thanks so much for joining us. Are there other thoughts, other cool things that we've seen?
I can jump in on a challenge I've seen, just PSE and SCLC, the organization I work for. We are involved in proceedings before the Public Service Commission, and usually there'd be like a public comment period where like people, Georgians, would be able to talk to the people who they elected to serve the public interest on energy decisions and like utility decisions and regulating utilities. And we've seen some like really terrible practices in terms of like the format. First of all, like it's not accessible for everybody to be able to get online at a certain time of day. It's hard enough to get off work to go and speak in front of somebody, like let alone some of the difficulties in trying to do it online and navigating all of that. And it's not necessarily like the best system set up for that. And it sounds like there's been a lot of difficulties with or cutting off people at the public comment period. So I think that's a challenging thing in this day and age where like we can't ask people to show up in person at some place, but if it's not necessarily going to be easy for them to weigh in virtually, that's a major problem. So I know we've already seen some issues with kind of, keeping the public input process at bay, and I think that's pretty troubling. So just as an area that we definitely need to push for better practices in.
Yeah, absolutely. That is incredibly challenging. Thanks so much for sharing, Emily. Others?
I would say that I also I think the mutual aid networks are a great example, but just on social media, like I found some amazing resources just from my friends posting like this quick fact sheet or like go donate here. And so it feels like so grassroots, like people are kind of like, you know what, like the government isn't listening to us, like police aren't really doing anything for us, like it's like we need to take back control is kind of how I feel. And so it's like reaching deeper into like our friends, what are they learning, how are they sharing, like our family, our neighborhood, like all these different more grassroots, more like hyper local, how do we take care of each other kind of efforts. It's kind of what I've been noticing. It's not top down at all. It's like pretty much like diffuse, cool organizing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that feels really important. How do people kind of plug themselves into a broader network when there isn't one true leader or one true organization? Thanks, Linnea.
I would also add, from what I've seen is at the organizational level, lots of events and webinars being, well, webinars already, but being online and offered through a medium that I think previously, at least for me, you know, some of these events I wouldn't be able to have attended. And now that they're online, it allows organizations to reach a broader audience, which can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that we've seen in our work is the flexibility. But I think it's interesting to think of both your comment and Emily's kind of intention with each other together, right? Like there is a broader sense of access to be able to share information, to be able to record and have people show up to receive that information at a time that's most convenient for them in a way that isn't exactly the same when we're all meeting in person. And, you know, those challenges when those platforms aren't accessible to everyone, like holding both together, that's super awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, folks. Our second question is, have you seen people organize around the social uprisings? So a little bit of a different spin, and knowing that they're kind of both related, right? One is happening within the other, they nest together. But are there specific things that feel really interesting or and exciting around the social uprisings and organizing?
Well, in my internship, a lot of the Black executive leaders, a lot of the Black senior leaders in their respective employee support groups, they're reaching out and they're educating the other members of the groups about what's been happening in real time. So there's people sharing pamphlets and books and resources. Like yesterday, I was on a call with like the Raleigh Durham Cisco early in career group, and it's about 600 people in there. And then there was they had a movie night watching the 13th on Netflix as like a Netflix party. And you know, as the movie was progressing, you could see people's thoughts in the chat bubble and asking for clarification about this, or asking, they're asking where they could read more about this specific event. So to answer the question, people are taking it upon themselves to go out into the community and actually educate people about what's happening. So.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, that is definitely something I've seen as well. Others? "13th" is an incredible piece. I remember watching it right when it came out, and it's definitely really powerful. Feel free to tag that for your Netflix watching. Yeah.
I would definitely say on the education part has been big on just organizing around this. For me, I've seen at the academic level different labs and also colleges just having, you know, first a town hall talk about what's going on, and then afterwards making action items of, you know, what are we going to do, because if we don't make action items after we meet, then maybe we're not going to get stuff done. But just seeing the point of, you know, we're going to talk about it, we're going to read and watch more about it, and then afterwards we're going to make changes. And just seeing that happen with, either different professors or different departments leading that action, which is overdue, but it's now happening, is just, I guess, the organizing that I see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that I've seen has been around like really shifting, like in connection to that, really shifting budgets. So I've seen a lot of students, both in my high school and my college, really focus on withholding funding dollars from their like annual fundraisers, and saying like, we have collective dollars together, like make these changes, hire more Black and brown staff to a certain percentage, really make sure that these things are added to the curriculum, etc. Because there is power there, and also being able to educate, but moving towards a broader strategy, right? How do we like leverage those dollars over the long run, not just for right now for the demands they have at this moment, but for all of the times after that? How do we keep this group and this momentum together to create a longer lasting experience that hopefully both of those administrations will forget? Others?
I'll just quickly say it's just been really good to see the power of like social media being harnessed for good, and not just like a bunch of people talking about mundane things. Like, it's obviously a lot of these conversations are long overdue / have been going on, and maybe some people weren't paying attention as much. And I mean, this is now kind of like a breaking point where it's like, if you're still like have the blinders on, then that's like a personal choice, because there's so many good resources out there. And I've just been kind of blown away at how much good information there is out there that's so easily accessible. And like Tiago was saying about like the actionable items, like it's easier than ever just to like sign a petition, or to like, put your name on an email that's like already filled out, to like take some kind of action for racial equity. And so I think that's definitely a really positive part of this, is like everybody's online and stuck at home. And I think that's, there's an ability to harness that for good, and we're really seeing that. So I'm at least hopeful about, spreading better information to more people and having people take action accordingly. So that's been good to see.
Absolutely. Like, I've been saving all of the social media posts, and like, these will be great, like for another time, or when I'm trying to teach someone else, like really palatable information. So that's really great.
Totally. My saved page looks so different than it did a year ago, for sure.
Others, and I don't want to force it, but Jari, Dana, Franklin, or Kirsten, if you have anything you want to share.
I could go next. I guess one of the things that I'm like really happy to see in my community is protests with Black Lives Matter, and also with abolishing ICE. And it's really nice to see that those protests were started by high school students from my community. So it just gives me like a lot of like hope for the future.
Wow, that is really cool. Franklin?
I think the protests are warranted and justified. I think what we can't do, we can't let our emotions rule us. We gotta take in consideration all the facts and how it affects everybody involved in the movement. Case in point, the last incident that happened at the Wendy's, where you had two organizations that were protesting against the police, but they were both going in two different directions. You got one group of people having peaceful protests, and you have another group of people who are blocking people from entering the premises and with long guns. And as a result, this 8-year-old girl got killed senseless, and it doesn't make sense. I think as Black and brown people, we have to, while we seeking justice from the police, we have to also clean up our backyard. We all got to be on the same accord. And I think that's what one thing missing in the organizing of today is that there's no clear-cut leader. So there's nobody who is directing agendas. So everybody, I guess these new organizers are hitting and missing. And we are in a crucial time. We're in a crossroad. We got the attention of the whole nation. And now it's time is right for us to protest together with the same agenda, nonviolently.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Yeah, I think that there is like a definitely like interesting tension that you're naming as well between a new type of organizing, right, that is focused on undecentralized and communal power of like there isn't one person making decisions, and so a lot of choices are being made as a group sees fit, as a group identifies, and sometimes that means that there might be splits in decision making, right, about what to do or how to show up, because there are so many different types of energies that are involved, right? Some people are rightfully very upset, right? Like their communities are being taken from them in so many different ways, and other folks are on a different, understand what change means in a really different way. And when they show up together, there definitely can be a distance between the actions that they take. And so trying to figure out, especially when there are so many new people that are coming into organizing work, right? How do we share a space in which all of those energies are important, all of those strategies are needed, and about when and how to utilize them is going to be the choices that people make on the ground. So thanks so much for sharing that. Other thoughts in between either both of those questions?
I find it like difficult in a way to support the movement. Not from like a political standpoint, but like just for safety. For example, my household is full of high risk people. So it would not be smart of me to go out and participate in a protest per se. So like, I think like one of, I think a good thing, a good idea that we should do is try to morph the narrative. Instead of like you have to go out and physically show your support, you can do it in ways that are not going to endanger others. You know, that's just my idea or my thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah, that's really critical. And I think a new part of what organizing means in this moment, right? Like how do we allow people to show up in ways that are best for them, and offer more than one option, because there's so much, there's so many isms that we like don't name often, that I think in a pre-COVID world, especially, wouldn't have even been considered. It's kind of like you're not showing up, like that's problematic. And we get to move into a space that, right, like no matter what body you inhabit, whatever your challenges are physically, mentally, emotionally, etc., there can be options. And how do we make sure that they expand past COVID to allow people to be healthy, honestly, while supporting the thing that they believe in, and still like initiating change. Thanks so much for that, Niara. I think our final collective question sort of is, what do all of both of these moments teach us, both together and separately?
I think this one of the greatest things that I've learned during this experience is how creative people can get, you know. How, like, there's things that I've seen on social media, good and bad, that I didn't know people, like, I didn't know that they existed. I didn't know that people cared about things that much. You know, it was just the amount of creativity that has come out of this whole thing has been like astronomical, like, honestly.
Absolutely. Others? What have these experiences taught us, both either individually or collectively?
I guess kind of add on to what Niara said. It's really like one of those things where it's like, in terms of like Black Lives Matter, how it kind of like branched out to like other injustices, and people like, especially on like Twitter, how people are just like, support Black lives, but also support these groups, support these individuals that are in need of the help. And it's just like, it kind of shined a light to like everyone, you know, and myself included, but like to everyone about like what's going on in the world that we can do something about.
Absolutely. Expanding that creative energy, so needed. Others? Yeah, I think what's interesting to me, kind of alongside of that, is like, yeah, when people want to find those creative ways, they really can really like change the narrative. And I think with COVID, about how to not only make things accessible, but make them joyful, I think has been really wonderful, right? Like, there are some really scary things about COVID. There are some really scary things about the uprisings, but kind of when there's been also so much joy and collective care and experience that's been alongside those things too, to like demystify and not make them as daunting, but to allow people to actually engage, whether that's making, you know, all the memes, you know, both positive and negative. I have some questions about some of those memes and what they're saying and what their intention is, but allowing people to have them be social media accessible, right? Like, social media doesn't have to be the scary place, you know. It can be the place in which we learn and share Black joy, share the joy of a community, and also learn about the things that matter. COVID can be scary, but can also be a way to like learn all the funny ways in which people wore masks at the beginning, like, and the ways to do it and not to do it. And so that infusion and creativity has been really wonderful.
We also have to talk about the education as well. There's a lot of people of color and a lot of Caucasians that are coming out and saying that, apologizing, like, this is the way I've thought about things before. Now that I see these things, they're willing to change and fight for the cause. And it's a two-way street, because, you know, they could either stay ignorant, or they could, or the people who they're coming to for help and for enlightenment could be closed off and bitter about it. But, you know, there's been a collaborative teaching student type thing that's been happening within like all the communities. So like, yeah.
Absolutely. yeah, like apologies, forgiveness, recognition, reconciliation, all things that I think, at least in my experience, that folks have really wanted to be a part of a sense of accountability, a sense of community and justice, right? Like being able to allow people to be so educated that they're able to iterate on their thinking, and to allow that space. I think that's some really cool to see in communities as well, right? When people realize they're wearing their masks wrong and they're not doing it right, you know, and they're like, I haven't been protecting or showing up in this community the way I wanted to, or the way I thought I was. We have 4 more minutes. Linnea, or Dana, or Diego, do you want to close us out with any thoughts?
I don't want to close any. I don't want to
Not
close.
close. We have a couple more minutes.
It's like, not that, I don't want that on me. But yeah, I would say like I have been really noticing like and learning the depth within like these movements. Like none of this is new. I think particularly as a white person, like I think just like realizing that there's like texts that have been published 100+ years and they're still completely true today, and like going back into history and being like, oh wow, it's just not changed at all, and having that narrative that I've been steeped in as like a white person challenged, and then also seeing the wisdom that can be pulled from generations back, has been like, I think, a big lesson in this movement, at least for me. And I think yeah.
I would definitely say you know, what's been said already, the part of the role of social media, seeing that drastically shifts just because I think it's, you know, organizing now is in the sense of people making their own Google Docs or just compiling a bunch of different links and resources to put together. Seeing that happen, and also just COVID in general, exposing the injustices in society and seeing really like there is so much that we have to fix, and showing us, you know, exactly where we need to tackle.
Dana or Franklin, are there any comments? Are about to be brought back.
Well,
He has 60 seconds.
it kind of reminds me that we had to some way find out how we can have a peaceful change in the current state of way police are policing. People have been getting shot all the while. The only difference now is that everybody have a camera. Back in my day, when a black man got shot, it was usually thrown out for insufficient evidence, or nobody wanted to talk or anything like that. But in today's time, it's a little different.
Mm-hmm. Franklin, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're going back. So thank you, everyone.
Questions. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, we got Andre.
Yeah.
Hi, Harriet.
Hey.
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 Welcome back.
If you all are comfortable, for me, please cut on your camera so I can see your face. If you can't, it's okay. No big deal.
And then Erica will be back at 6:20.
Don't judge me.
Nobody's gonna judge.
There's no judgment ever. Like,
this is a judgment-free zone. Okay. How's everybody feeling today?
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
How about you?
I'm doing all right. kicking myself because I was in Panera Bread with my laptop, and then the whole network in Panera Bread shut down, so I had to get in my car and use my phone. But it's okay. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. All right. So what we want to do is I'm going to throw the first question out there. I want the youngest person on the call, and we'll have to figure out how we figure out who that is. I want them to answer first, and then we'll go from there. Okay? So the first question is, how have you seen organizing done in the midst of COVID-19? So with the social uprising, with people providing resources for those people affected by COVID, whether it be a community organizer or a group, how have you seen people be able to navigate this space?
I figure out
Anybody?
who's list.
In the great
I was
words of Dwayne
born, I was born
Patterson, you can
1980,
be
so
volunteer or you can be voluntold.
Well, Andre, it's definitely not you.
right.
So let's go with Zoe. Zoe, can you go first for us? Okay. Yuana, did I say that correctly?
Uwana.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. Zoe is having mic issues.
Okay.
If you can see from the chat.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. That's fine. So after you, then Zoe will go next.
So the question is, how have I seen communities organizing?
Over the course of the coronavirus, whether that be organizations or individual people doing.
I guess I've mostly just seen a lot of like webinars or like web meetings, how we're doing right now. And then I know that, you know, some people were organizing physically, you know, in the streets, especially throughout last month. But I wasn't involved in that, so I can't really speak on how they're organizing in that sense. But I've seen a lot of digital connections this way.
Okay. And what was did anything stick out to you?
I did a conference and it kind of broke some expectations, but there was a thought that like a lot of people, especially older people, wouldn't be able to connect this way just because digital technology can be kind of complicated. But I've been in the conference where there's a significant amount of like older folks, and it was good to see that like regardless of age, there was still connection in that aspect. And I don't know anything else about like the demographics, but at least that was good.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you. Zoe? Still having mic issues?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
you. Can you hear me now? Okay. And I'm sorry, one more time, what was the question?
So how have you seen people organize over the course of the COVID-19?
From a university standpoint, I definitely have seen faculty in like the presidential cabinet step up more. They've been sending out more like solidarity emails saying like, we're here for you, and definitely more resources for faculty and students of like mental illness awareness. I have seen more, you know, businesses acknowledging what's going on, which I do like. The only question I ask is why haven't they done this sooner? This has been going on for a long time, so it's kind of like, why now? And not just saying it, but what are you going to do about it? But I have seen good change, and we got to start somewhere, so I think it's a good start.
Rachel, can you answer that?
Sure. So I just graduated from college, and I totally agree that it seems like when you're in that space, a lot of like communication comes through the university. So now that I'm kind of navigating organizing outside of that, seems like people are really utilizing online spaces and social media to connect, especially when it comes to a lot of momentum going on right now. So, yeah, that's what I've noticed is kind of that shift towards more social media becoming more of a platform rather than like a specific organization.
Okay, so for the three of you, who gets left behind? We have to switch solely over to webinars and the internet.
Obviously, there's an issue of access, so not everyone has access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people who are not familiar with
industries in particular? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To people who are not tech savvy, so maybe people newer to technology, maybe older people.
Okay.
Yeah, and
You
even
know,
people.
there are still some counties in the South that don't have any digital infrastructure at all. They don't even have broadband internet. Those are the kind of barriers we're facing nowadays. Where in 2020, people don't have. What could we do when the world has completely shifted online to organize and help those people? And this is for anybody in the group. I'm sorry if I called three people specifically, but I'd love to hear from Andre. I'd love to hear from Blythe or Miss Oliver. Anybody. How do we start to think about a world where a lot of people don't even know what's going on if it was all left to the internet?
So you're asking how do we begin to like educate folks on either using the internet or other like means of connection?
Other means of connection. Like how do we work around the fact that there's a COVID crisis and most people have shifted to the internet, but some people don't even have access to the internet or can't afford a laptop.
Right.
Well, the radio I've seen, I've been hearing a lot more on the radio, but for me personally, I mostly only listen to the radio when I'm in my car, and I have not been driving. I haven't filled up my gas tank since March. So, I mean, I'll probably have to do that next week. But, you know, the radio has has an opportunity to fill that gap, but it depends on like how much you listen to it.
Anybody else?
I don't know if, I don't know much about the rural areas in terms of access to even television in that, well, I'll say, when I say television, I'm thinking of like, the, what am I trying to say? The public access channels that are available. I don't know, is that, this is new to me as far as understanding just how set apart the rural areas are. But because I think of the public access channels as a means of communication for anybody that doesn't have the other, but I don't know if that kind of thing is accessible out in the rural areas. Maybe you all can speak, but that's another thing that possibly, because distance, I even think about, I was just thinking, gathering places where, I don't know to what extent those areas even have rec centers or something where they can gather. Maybe you all can answer me that as well. Churches, temples and such, but like I do know that in certain rural areas, still they can be spread out. And so, but back to what I was saying in terms of public access channels, if that's a possibility. That's a thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to comment on that?
I'm just thinking personally, I mean, there's been a lot of activism around broadband expansion, especially in the South, and I think it just has to be part of a stimulus package the government offers at this point. I really think there's no reason or way that we can work around it. I think that has to be addressed first. I'm also wondering about maybe progressing on into the fall or the spring if there were gatherings in person where different tech co-ops or like certain spaces that have access could then either give routers out or have kind of like we were thinking before Just Energy Summit, like having deputizing regional partners to come together and have like a screening in person, but then having it be distanced at the same time. So I think there can be creative approaches to this, but I really do think it comes down to it being a part of a stimulus package and just having government help expand that personally.
So now, for everybody, now, how have you seen people organize around the social uprising? I mean, there have been tens and thousands of people standing beside each other with the Black Lives Matter movement, with basically coming out with all their grievances across the United States. And it seems like for that moment in time, nobody cared about COVID. Nobody was concerned about the transmission of the virus. People didn't have a mask. They were holding hands. They were jumping around. Some people even had protests in the rain. What does it look like to organize in that context? Or how have you seen people organize? Have people just blatantly went at it with the approach that they don't even really care? Or have people done things to make separation or pass out hand sanitizer or pass out masks? What have you seen in your area?
At least in Atlanta, there were people passing out masks at certain events. So that seemed like a good way to obviously like pay attention to COVID while also being present there.
That's good to know because I haven't personally seen any myself in pictures of like the protests, but I'm definitely glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think they had maybe like 40 masks, so obviously not enough for everyone.
Right.
Like
capacity is still an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was encouraging to see mask and some sort of distancing, and even more encouraging to see a story out within about a week or so of the uprisings that there has not been a spike of COVID at the uprisings, and I was just like, okay, that's actually good, and people can't point a finger at us anymore about this. But then the next week came out that there were spikes everywhere else. So we'll see what happens. But it's been good to see people still get out there and also be mindful of the current context, to be safe, and to also let their voices be heard. And there's a lot more people taking things outside of the public uprisings and doing more in their own fields, in their own places of work, or places where they have influence or whatever, and who are now finding this time to actually step up a lot more, and to also know that there is support out there for people to step up. So, and this means for everything from employers to groups to being in their own kind of social groups or something of that matter. There is an opportunity for people to step and say, okay, enough is enough.
I'm just really worried personally about people, because there's not a spike now, people like relaxing, and then we get like a third, fourth wave in the fall or something. I'm worried about that for sure. I want to quickly share that I actually, on July 4th, was on a bike ride through Stone Mountain, and I actually saw the Black Militia formation, which was like so dope. It was like, I didn't really know what was happening until I saw the news afterwards, but they were in formation and they were masked up. They had all the official, they were all in black. They were trying to not, preserve their anonymity, which was also good. But I saw every single one of them wear masks. And that was a great intersection of again, standing your ground, engaging in the racial protests, but also being mindful of the moment of, the pandemic. So I felt very inspired by that. So piece of history right there.
Okay, so did anybody else have anything else before I bring up the next thing? Okay, so being that, so everybody doesn't do everything the same way. So there was a population of people in every single major city who went out and said, you know what, forget the risk, no mask. I'm just going to go out there with a crowd of 10,000 people. There are people who I'm going to go with the mask. There are people that said, I'm only going to do things digital. Are there different ways to organize and fight for social justice issues and participate in the social uprising without going one of those routes where you can protect yourself but also build power amidst your friends and advocate? I want to know, have anybody seen that happen over the course of the last few months?
Can you give that just again? You want? Have we seen what exactly? Just one more time.
So outside of just going outside for the protests and solely being online and webinars, what are other ways that people have organized to fight for social justice or to participate in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Not like in a webinar sense, but I guess kind of still online is like people making donations. And kind of just like starting those conversations, I guess, more casually and voluntarily through like social media posts and like opening comments and having like conversations that way in a smaller, like more connected sense with your direct community.
Anybody else?
Yeah, to kind of
Right.
piggyback off you. I was going to say, going along with the technology aspect of this, I've seen more conferences being hosted. I know I follow PBS, and they've been hosting more workshops on how to talk to children about everything that's going on and how teachers can use this in the classroom. So more professional development in those ways too.
You said PBS?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Would grant writing qualify? Those that would assist different people or groups of people affected negatively by COVID.
Absolutely. So I
And
think
also, I had one more thing to add. And I don't know if this counts still with the digital part, but people have been like signing petitions or writing infographics that have like history and background and examples of like the systems that are being challenged. And they'll post resources for like calling your representatives, or at least just like informing you on how your representatives are important in this matter. And that's been another way. Absolutely. Though it has been online, but in different forms.
So for me, I think just as important as all those things is having the conversation at home with the people you live with. So, it doesn't, to be organized and be effective, it doesn't take 10,000 people. It could just be having that conversation. This the state of the world being the fertile ground to have that conversation at home that most people don't have. Like, you see people online, like, having conversations. It's like, hey, mom and dad, I've noticed that, like, you've done X, Y, Z a ton over my lifetime. Like, what's that about? Like, or, you know, can we talk about this? Can we get to the bottom of, like, why do you feel that way? Raising money is always a good thing. The petitions, people calling and texting policymakers, and I've seen so many different things, and I'm glad to see that people are getting in a way that makes them feel comfortable. So specifically, because we're here about youth, tell me, and we're gonna go through all 4 areas on this. What power or what strength or leverage does youth specifically have in this time to impact, like, how the healthcare system can operate in the future if we're organized?
You're saying what power do we have, like individually, bringing to a collective movement?
Yeah, like what power do we have as youth if we're organized to impact something like a healthcare system?
Okay.
Nothing? Anybody? Okay, so I'll throw the first one out there. We can vote. Local elections are really, really important. We talk about the city and the county and these city council positions, the PSC for Georgia Power, different things like that. All of these governing bodies have to be voted on. So does anybody have a second thing that we could do? Come on, we got to be able to do something.
I think that for schools that have a affiliation or a connection with a hospital, there can be a student movement within the school to change some of the practices in the healthcare system that's attached to it.
So let me ask a better question. What values do we have to share as a group in order to make things change? Do we have to value equity? Do we have to value money? Do we have to value time? Do we have to value benevolence? Like, what are the values that we can share that allow us work better together than what our parents and our grandparents did over time when it comes to these big issues?
I think that valuing the variety of different voices that are out there, that there isn't just one singular voice or way or thing or approach to this, mega issue. There are many different ways. It's like what's the adage? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? There are many different things happening at the same time. That thing gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So really valuing that there are many different ways to go at it and to support those different ways. And I say that just because of thinking about there are many different ways to protest. There are many different ways to participate in an uprising. Aside from being out there in the streets or with a mask on your face, it's doing this right now is another way. So just really making sure that those different approaches are seen, are valued, and that they are uplifted as well, so that everybody has a chance to feel a part of what we are doing.
Yeah. I'm thinking too, like there's so much politics just involved with even just wearing a mask. And I think youth can definitely advocate for just the facts and uplifting science and like not using it as a political tactic of like, I'm deciding to exercise my freedom by not wearing a mask, but actually just uplifting the narrative of I wear a mask for you, for the people that possibly could be infected. I'm taking, precautions on my own to help you. And I'm also just uplifting science and what I've learned. And I think, that can be done also, like Andre mentioned, in a variety of ways, but uplifting that narrative for sure.
So, just a call back, we value the facts, and we value everybody's voices being lifted up, and we feel like if all voices are heard, then we're more powerful than ours. We elect one person to speak on behalf of everybody. Are there things that we can get commune around as a value that will allow us to move forward a little bit better than what it's been in the past?
Persistence.
Good. So we won't quit. What are the values? Come on, Rachel. I know you got one for me.
I was kind of thinking of durability in that you're not torn apart easily. You create such a strong connection within a movement, within your peers, within the movement. That it's really hard to break you apart and divide you.
Yeah, I like that. Think about the fact that when, rest in peace and our respect to George Floyd, when he passed, the world was ablaze and everybody cared for a week. And to no avail, you don't hear his name anymore. Why do we lose momentum? Or why do we settle for moral victories? Like in this situation, they were organized very well. Everybody you see talking about Breonna Taylor, they say, well, we're going to name a law after her. And then people like let off some steam. It's a moral victory. Like they just kind of made a monument for her, but they didn't give her justice. And for some reason, we didn't have the resilience to keep organizing and to stay abreast as a nation about what's going on and to make sure that that case is seen all the way through. Why don't we have resilience? Why don't we keep momentum? Like what values should be put in place to keep us going? We don't have any distractions right now. There's no basketball season. There's no football season. There's no concert. There's no homework right now. So is it just that we just value rest more than we value liberation, or do we value not thinking about it? Or like what are the set of values that we currently have that have put us in a position where we lose steam on certain things like this?
Yeah. I think we need more precise focus too, instead of like being placated by, monuments coming down and short-term band-aids. Like, again, justice still not served to Breonna Taylor and many other names like her. And, we need to have focus to make sure that justice is served.
And
What?
Oh, you said go ahead? I was just going to say, not from a religious standpoint, but necessarily, although it could be, but I'm just saying a spiritual connection to me binds us, the work, and it causes you to never leave it when that spiritual connection is there. You may take a rest, take a respite, but it's still a very, it's still a very part of your essence. So.
So we reach to a spiritual standard in life.
Your audio is cutting out a little bit, Michael. I'm gonna text him in the. I don't know if you use access to the chat.
The principle of being connected to something bigger than us to be our show the call back when we go back into the large.
We lost him.
Oh no. I'll try texting him, just let him know. I know we only have 2 more minutes though, so if anyone else wants to add in any comments to what we're saying.
I think Michael alluded to earlier that we don't have any distractions. There's no school, there's nothing taken away from us. I agree, but then also at the same time, we are a lot more, our attention is a lot more stretched these days, and I think movements have come before. It's hot, to be out there. It's hot to be, an advocate, and then move on to something else. It's like the thing that we do, and then there are those of us afterwards who see, okay, no, I really want to be in this fight for the long term. And it's those few who continue to work on and on and on and on and on. And then it comes back around again where it's like some more masses come in. I mean, I think either Harry or somebody said it earlier. It takes patience, persistence, and being able to see things in a more of a long view. Than ever before. So, yeah, we're not distracted, but then again, we are, and now we just need to be persistent.
I know we only have 1 more minute, but I think that was a really important point.
Thank you. So, which one is our leader? Who is going to be our speaker? Come on, you could be volunteer, you could be voluntold. Somebody. Zoe, Rachel, Mona, one of you 3. Or all 3 of y'all can do it. That way the onus is not just on one. How y'all want to do it?
I'd rather not. My internet's kind of taking out, so if someone else could take it, that'd be great.
Okay, Zoe, or you want?
Right. Ray, I hope your conversations were fruitful. I'm sure they were. I'm going to take us through maybe like the next 10 minutes or so of talking about some big themes that have come out of our conversations. So we know that last time we talked a lot about the issue. So what is the issue? What are the issues? What are we seeing in our prospective towns, neighborhoods, with our families? And so this time we want to talk about what are some of the actions that we've been thinking about? What are the ways that we want to make change? So Blythe is taking notes for us, and I'd love to hear like since there were only 2 groups, I'd love to hear big ideas from you all about actions, and then we'll go into introducing our speaker.
Is there any?
So from the first breakout session, we talked about a few things. One of the first things we talked about was like how is our mode of activism, specifically talking about technology, not reaching people who may be in communities that don't have the technology or those who may have access to it. We also talked about, and anyone, please feel free to, you know, piggyback your statement. I don't want to mess up anyone's words as well. Also talking about what forms of activism you can do, such as donating, spreading word media, going out and voting, letting people know what's going on as well. So there's some few things to talk about. So that's going to also add into.
Thanks. Is that you, Zoe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, I recognize the voice. Great. Sounds great. Anybody else? And then we can like just have kind of a general conversation about what action themes have come up for you all.
A lot of people are taking heed at the fact that the coronavirus cases have been rising exponentially in the entire country. So they're using a lot of platforms, you know, not necessarily just social media platforms, but, you know, like developers and programmers are creating bots to because they understand that some people are not going to go out and write a letter to Congress or write a letter to Senate, but if they're able to use an automated service and get those out to many people, as many people as possible, then, and without leaving their house, you know, that's one way that I've been seeing people take action. A lot of people are using hashtags and spamming them, or tagging people that are involved or should be involved in spamming them. So that sort of thing.
Dope. Thank you, Mia. Any other thoughts on like actions that you've seen, or like actions that you want to take, like in ways that how you want to show up in your community, and actions that you potentially have been thinking about taking that maybe you haven't seen but you thought might be a good idea?
Hey, Harriet, if you're speaking to the group, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying in relation to COVID, I know I had thought that I plan on getting more information about places that I could go to in a moment's notice when different opportunities arise. I received different opportunities for some grants and that were related to, you know, helping persons that are negatively affected by COVID. And I remember trying to, you know, reach out and find these people, and I asked around and called different places, but it was difficult getting someone, and there was one group that I thought that wanted this kind of thing, but then they kind of shied away because they had their own particular take on fulfilling some of the aspects of the grant. But I said to myself that what I would hope to do, Lord willing, is have a long list of agencies or places and makes contacts with people ahead of time so that when opportunities like that arise, I can more easily, see, because I know that, we know that so many people have been, affected terribly. And so for those kinds of situations, those of funding to arise and then people not be able to take part of it, that to me it kind of hurt. And I said to myself that I would hope to, have this kind of information ahead of time so I can just plug in more readily.
Thank you for those thoughts, Ms. Harriet. I appreciate that. Any other final thoughts before we go to our speaker on action that either you've seen or that you would like to see regarding both COVID or the racial uprising that's been happening? Okay, great. Well, that all sounds like you all had really great conversations, which I'm super happy about. I am gonna pass it over to Mike now to introduce our speaker. Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Thank you all for everything. I really enjoyed our breakout session. Today, you all are going to hear from Dwayne Patterson. He is our VP of Strategy and Engagement. He is my organizing manager, and over the course of the last 6 months has taught me a lot of stuff about organizing and how values-based organizing is much different from organizing that you learn at other organizations when you probably just go and door knock to solicit votes. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. Dwayne has been an organizer for over 30 years. Don't mean to age you. He went to an HBCU, North Carolina A&T, and he's always proud to tell us about it. So yeah, please sit back and enjoy. Dwayne, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Yeah.
Hey,
no
Erica,
problem.
how are you? Let me start at the beginning. First and foremost, Aggie Pride, just so we get it set off properly. To all my Aggies on the online.
Ray, I hope your conversations were fruitful. I'm sure they were. I'm gonna take us through maybe like the next 10 minutes or so of talking about some big themes that have come out of our conversations. So we know that last time we talked a lot about the issue. So what is the issue? What are the issues? What are we seeing in our prospective towns, neighborhoods, with our families? And so this time we want to talk about what are some of the actions that we've been thinking about? What are the ways that we want to make change? So Blythe is taking notes for us, and I'd love to hear like big, since there were only 2 groups, I'd love to hear big ideas from you all about actions, and then we'll go into introducing our speaker.
So from the first breakout session, we talked about a few things. One of the first things we talked about was like how is our mode of activism, specifically talking about technology, not reaching people who may be in communities that don't have the technology or those who might have access to it. We also talked about, and anyone please feel free to, piggyback or say something. I don't want to mess up anyone's words as well. Also talking about what forms of activism you can do, such as donating, spreading word on social media, going out and voting, letting people know what's going on as well. So there's some few things to talk about. So that's gonna also add into.
Thanks. Is that you, Zoe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Erica. How are you?
Hi, I recognize the voice. Great. Sounds great. Anybody else? And then we can like just have kind of a general conversation about what action themes have come up for you all.
A lot of people are taking heed at the fact that the coronavirus cases have been rising exponentially in the entire country. So they're using a lot of platforms, not necessarily just social media platforms, but, like developers and programmers are creating bots to because they understand that some people are not going to go out and write a letter to Congress or write a letter to Senate, but if they're able to use an automated service and get those out to many people, as many people as possible, then, and without leaving their house, that's one way that I've been seeing people take action. A lot of people are using hashtags and spamming them, or tagging people that are involved or should be involved in spamming them. So that sort of thing.
Dope. Thank you, Nia. Any other thoughts on like actions that you've seen, or like actions that you want to take, like in ways that how you want to show up in your community, and actions that you potentially have been thinking about taking that maybe you haven't seen but you thought might be a good idea?
Hey, Harriet, if you're speaking to the group, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying in relation to COVID, I know I had thought that I plan on getting more information about places that I could go to in a moment's notice when different opportunities arise. I receive different opportunities for some grants and that were related to helping persons that are negatively affected by COVID. And I remember trying to reach out and find these people, and I asked around and called different places, but it was difficult getting someone in it. And there was one group that I thought that wanted this kind of thing, but then they kind of shied away because they had their own particular take on fulfilling some of the aspects of the grant. But I said to myself that what I would hope to do, Lord willing, is have a long list of agencies or places, and make contacts with people ahead of time, so that when opportunities like that arise, I can more easily, see, because I know that, we know that so many people have been, affected terribly. And so for those kinds of situations, those of funding to arise, and then people not be able to take part of it, that to me it kind of hurt. And so I said to myself that I would hope to have this kind of information ahead of time, so I can just plug in more readily.
Thank you for those thoughts, Ms. Harriet. I appreciate that. Any other final thoughts before we go to our speaker on action that either you've seen or that you would like to see regarding both COVID or the racial uprising that's been happening? Okay, great. Well, that all sounds like you all had really great conversations, which I'm super happy about. I am gonna pass it over to Mike now to introduce our speaker. Mike, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Thank you all for everything. I really enjoyed our breakout session. Today, you all are going to hear from Dwayne Patterson. He is our VP of Strategy and Engagement. He is my organizing manager, and over the course of the last 6 months has taught me a lot of stuff about organizing and how values-based organizing is much different from organizing that you learn at other organizations when you probably just go and door knock to solicit votes. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. Dwayne has been an organizer for over 30 years. Don't mean to age you. He went to an HBCU, North Carolina A&T, and he's always proud to tell us about it. So, yeah, please sit back and enjoy. Dwayne, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Yeah.
Hey,
no
Erica,
problem.
how are you? Let me start at the beginning. First and foremost, Aggie Pride, just so we get it set off properly. To all my Aggies on the online, it is such a pleasure to be here with you all. I think this is probably one of the most exciting programs that PSE has been able to support and put together with the able talent and skills of folks like Michael and Erica. It is awesome to see it come into fruition. So hello, and where do you want me to start?
I think, Rachel, you have the PowerPoint. You're welcome to share your screen and manage.
Okay. Also, Dwayne, if you want to talk a little bit about your story and organizing, your relationship to being at A&T and relationship to organizing as a young person, that's definitely a place to start as I pull up that PowerPoint.
Yeah, so I think the most important part along my journey was being in proximity to where change was happening in my community. My mother was a community activist at that particular time in the late 60s and 70s, you know, our communities were changing, very similar to what's happening now. We I was often in the back of the room playing under the coffee machines in the back of the room. And that's where I was exposed to community work and got to be extremely comfortable. When I became of age, the folks that were in the front of the room began to say things like, here, go take this flyer down to the church, or stand outside and hand these out, see if we can get people to come to this community meeting. So it was awesome to have that experience as a youngster. I grew up in New York, in Long Island, New York, Westbury to be exact. I left Long Island in 1987 and moved to California, moved to LA. And so being in LA, I was exposed to a completely different community, completely different rules, completely different circumstances. And prior to leaving New York, I was exposed to a HBCU network. You know, we took a trip from New York down to Atlanta, and we drove back to New York within like 5 days. So literally, we had about 20 minutes on each campus, but it was enough. It was enough to to bite deep enough for me to remember after graduation, and that's where I wanted to be. And I applied to Morehouse and proclaimed to be a Morehouse man once I got accepted in my senior year, and got rudely awakened by my parents, who were not willing to foot the bill for Morehouse. So when I moved to California, one of my best friend, actually my best man, went to A&T on a scholarship, and we were riding back and forth, and I began to investigate what it meant to be at North Carolina A&T and to go to business school. I applied there, got in. Again, same situation economically. It wasn't viable. So I put my coins together, and I literally took a bus from LA to Greensboro, North Carolina. And that's where my college career started, on the campus of A&T. But while I was there, I joined a organization called the History Club. And the History Club was engaged in many things to normalize, using the language of today, Black culture. We refused to call ourselves the Black History Club. And we got engaged into something called the Black Studies movement. I became the president of the Black Studies, of the History Club, and the Black Studies movement was something that ran from North Carolina all the way to Harvard. We were primarily focused on college campuses and the community surrounding them. We leveraged those campuses to get the needs met that we, the demands met that we identified on all of the campuses. It was the first time where the ACC responded in whole to provide pressure to the campuses, because we had organized the players at each of those schools, from Temple to UNC, et cetera, and of course all the HBCUs. And we said that we weren't going to play one inning, one period of basketball, nothing, unless the needs were met of the Black Studies movement. So we won. We were able to move for a freestanding Black Cultural Center on the campus of UNC. After taking over the administration building there, I was banned from attending any of their activities. We took over the administration building on the campus of North Carolina A&T, St. John's University, Temple, and et cetera. We also were able to advocate for 6 hours of African studies being mandatory for all HBCUs. North Carolina has the highest concentration of HBCUs in the country. So right now, if you go to school 20 years later at one of those HBCUs, it is a requirement for you to learn about yourself. And it was simple. If you would have went to Hofstra University in New York or Yeshiva University, you were going to learn something about Jewish culture. And we felt like if you were able to secure an experience at a Black college, that it was only right for you to have exposure to Black culture. We also were able to secure and monitor and log the African art. There was a pile of traditional African art in plastic bags in a broken down trailer. And we thought that was an improper way to take care of that art. Right now, today, those art pieces travel around the world and generate an income for the UNC system. A portion of those art pieces are on loan to their mother country. Greensboro is the sister city of Benin. And a large portion of that art has returned back to Benin and is generating income for the UNC system for scholarships for students today. So that journey was grounded in a lot of community work. After the death threats that I received, it wasn't the administration that came to my defense. It was the community folks that not only came to my defense, but provided physical places for me to hide and to be able to move around, and provided security for both me and my co-organizers. After leaving that, and being successful in that effort, we were able to organize nationally, with the National Black United Front, and the organizers of the Million Man March. We were able to bring 18 buses into DC. On that day, we were a part of the National Organizing Committee for the Million Man March, and that, in conjunction with the fraternity Phi Beta Sigma, were a part of the local organizing committee there in DC, prior to the Million Man March and the follow-up of the committee structures to that. Going through those components also included exposure to local issues. You can't organize people if you don't love the people. And because we love the people, we listen to the people. And we found that they needed help on many issues. There were school boards that need to be organized. Currently, the school board president that is current in Guilford County right now was a part of our community effort. We actually placed her through the work of the community members onto the school board for the very first time. Her name is Dina Hayes. Sister Dina was able to turn over a seat that was held by a person for many years that didn't serve the community at all. She was like one of the youngest school board members ever in Guilford County. Now she's the school board president. She also runs an outfit called the Equity Institute that's there in Greensboro. There's many stories similar to that. The housekeepers that were on campus at UNC complained to the officials there, and then we got wind of it that they were not being treated fairly. We not only helped to organize them, but we were able to secure a better deal for them through the work and pressure of the community that was surrounding UNC. That's the same community today that is fighting for free education for descendants of the enslaved Africans that built UNC. UNC, by the way, is the oldest campus, college campus in the country. But they never moved at the speed of social justice. So they literally had Black housekeepers at that time taking care of the students that were on campus. So about—
Thank you, Dwayne.
Sure.
That's powerful. You put me to shame. Thank you for that part. I think we're gonna transition into the PowerPoint just so we make sure we hit everything before we have to transition.
Okay, well, we can go back one slide. We'll talk about this notion of the first follower. We have built everything at PSE around that. I consider myself the first follower at PSE. Nathaniel Smith, our chief equity officer, was the visionary behind this entire movement. Please watch this and wrap your mind around how a movement is made.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the Leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. We were told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join.
Thank you for that. And this notion is important as we are in a time where people are very angry and they want to be a leader of sorts. It's important to understand that it's always much bigger than us as an individual person. You know, it's about the movement. And if we're going to build a movement or grow a movement, we got to have real skills. And that's really been a part of the work that PSE has been committed to, is building capacity so that leadership can grow and do what it's meant to do, and that's lead the people. This notion of being upset or being angry and being a part of society in this nebulous space is really important. One of the key thought leaders that helped me shape my thoughts as I accepted being a part of a leadership legacy and being a part of a society that really wanted to have impact. I had to understand that I was a part of something that started way before I got here, and that this society was mine, and it lived in me, and that notion came from this young man that's going to provide you with this piece, Dr. Amos Wilson.
Is it out there? No, society is not out there. Society is where? It is where? In us. A society can only be carried within the minds and bodies of its members. It does not exist as an entity outside of the minds and bodies of people. So when we talk about a society and a social structure, it must represent itself in the behavior of people and of individuals. Society exists outside and separate from people. That is logically impossible. And it's a stupidity that's perpetrated on the populations, upon our people, and often leads to serious misunderstandings, both of ourselves and of our situation.
So it is important for us as we evolve our critique of society and using it properly, we're really critiquing ourselves. And as you move towards, from anger to construction or production, know that it is your responsibility, it is your cultural imperative to build a better society, demonstrating in the work that you do every day and how you treat people and how you treat community and how you show up at work as you show up at play. It's important to know that you're on a mission, and that anger that you have or what you're being sort of upset about, and you have decided to build a beloved community, that is totally up to you, and it's my duty to support and to help you build that as well. There's a need, and we're going to be closing up, but I wanted you to understand the difference between organizing and advocacy. Organizing is important and advocacy are important, but they're not the same. Organizing is rooted in power building. And if you are engaging in trainings around organizing and they're not talking about power building, walk out, leave. Because where our people are, where this country is, where the society is, people are engaged in power grabs, and it's important that you understand that and understand how to move and to grow power. So if you're not doing that around organizing, it's important. Also, if the people can organize themselves, they would. My elders told me that. Most people are sufficiently upset and they're mad about things, but organizing allows us to organize that energy into something that's productive. So any questions that you have, I'm willing to answer questions. Or Mike, I don't know where you want to go with this.
Yeah. So what is an organizer? What makes a person who doesn't come from wealth, who doesn't come from influence, who doesn't have a famous last name, have the ability to move people and to change systems? What is that thing that makes people organizers, that makes them powerful?
Skills. Skills and accepting the legacy. There is a notion of social change or systems change that is imperative. It's at the top of the list, and organizers allow us to peek into that world and to address what has been done to us. Fannie Lou Hamer said it best, they know what they've done to us. And she knew her role in how she lived. She knew her role being a key supporter of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. If you don't know who they are, do your research. You can't be involved in this Southern work and not understand the tentacles, the nervous system that goes right back to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that has shaped how we have changed this world. Out of that committee, with the support of Fannie Lou, we call her Optimus Prime. Everything, how we fought here, what we won here in this country changed. So being able to accept that legacy, being able to be a permanent student. So organizers are permanent students. They are always focused on how can I get better. Rakim said, how can I move the crowd? They're focused on that. How do I speak to everyone? How do I move this community towards what they have declared that they want? That's the role of an organizer. Some will even say that an organizer's job is to organize themselves out of a job. that the people have learned the skills so that they can take over and move on. And you'll see that as evidence with many organizers. Once you're able to accomplish a particular goal, move to a community that needs you.
Does any of our youth have a question? I would really appreciate it if we had. We use these last 2 or 3 minutes to ask some really good questions.
You can also feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'm happy to say those as well if for whatever reason you're having audio issues.
I have a question. Hi, to introduce myself again, Dwayne Patterson, junior computer science student attending North Carolina A&T State University. My question to Dwayne Patterson is, what advice would you give for leaders that are feeling frustrated or feeling stuck about what's going on in the world today?
Never work alone. Never work alone. Your frustration is my frustration. Your frustration is the community frustration. The one thing that this society and oppressive societies will inject into your spirit is that you are alone and that you need to isolate yourself. We may not have a whole lot, but we have each other. And together we can come up with answers and solutions and tactics and strategies to survive. We got to move. And well, first we got to acknowledge that we are in a survival mode, right? Getting to the end of the year will be an accomplishment for most of you all as young people. That's important to know where you are. To go outside and to ignore that it's raining is just simply foolish. This is a very, very difficult time. And to say that out loud and declare that is okay. It's good to be explicit, but don't be by yourself. It's important. Come together with your community, come together with folks who love you and care about you, and reason together. We're here in the South, so we say we will wrestle together. Let's wrestle with this thing. Let's figure it out. The one thing that I know for sure is that we've had more difficult times. I also know that trouble doesn't last always. So what were the skills and techniques to get us out of those difficult times of the past? Can we apply some of that now? We need to know. That has helped me when I was frustrated.
We have a question. We have a question from Zoe. Any advice for young leaders experiencing ageism with older activists? An example is like my way is the only way because I have experienced it or I'm older. It's a really, really good question, Zoe.
Yeah. Again, probably the most effective example of how to deal with that would be SNCC, right? What we talked about earlier. There is such a thing as, respecting your elders, but there is a difference between elders, and I don't mind being explicit, and old people, right? Eldership requires wisdom. That's the bar. And just because you're older doesn't necessarily mean that you have the wisdom for the time that we're in. Wisdom can be broken down, practically to wise dome or wise head. Oftentimes, the folks that are engaging in that, they don't understand the knowledge of a circle. It is important to know that young people are not only on the scene, but leading the way, and that this is their fight. But it's hard to find people. It's also about this notion of scarcity. Ageism points to a much deeper problem where people think that there's just not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough. Something's driving that. It's not just the fact that I'm older. So, understanding the root or the nature of the beast is really, really important. And look for folks that are in their age range to address them directly. That is a part of our role as, wise older people, is to advocate for those who are not only leading the way, smart enough to know that this is a collective thing.
Thank you for that, Dwayne. Any other questions before we close out?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dwayne. We appreciate you for taking the time to talk to us.
No doubt. No doubt. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So before we all let you go, we're getting in the chat. Thank you. We just want to let you all know that we appreciate you for coming and sticking with it. As you know, we have another chat and shoe in July with, not July, I'm so sorry, August with Nathaniel, our CEO. We would love for you to participate in that conversation. Please go on keepthatsamenenergy.org and register like you did for this session. Be on the lookout for a social justice screening. So what we've been doing since COVID has started, some of our organizers have had movie nights about movies and documentaries that touch on equity. So please look out for the next announcement for when that happens. Erica, one more thing before I pass it over to Erica. The ambassador's application is open. We would love for you all to be ambassadors. We're going to make the announcement for the ambassadors at our large summit in October. And so we would really love and appreciate for you to apply so that we can announce our 10 in October. Andre or Erica or Blythe or Linnea, anybody, Rachel, do we have any other things to talk about before we let everybody go?
Any other announcements from the rest of the Partnership for Southern Equity staff? Cool. Well, I am just posting the ambassadorship application in the chat. If you have not applied to be a KTSE ambassador, I encourage you to do so. It's going to be a great opportunity for young leaders, both on and off campus, both in school and out of school, and student that's college age but not college bound, young people that are interested in doing the work beyond their own college campuses or beyond their neighborhoods. So we are encouraging folks to apply for the ambassador program. The ambassador program closes, or the application closes on September 4th. So please, 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 please apply to become a KTSE ambassador if you have not already done so. We will be so eager to have you. Thank you for whoever, Rachel, thank you for hosting our digital organizing training that is coming up on July 21st. So a lot of great things happening at Partnership for Southern Equity, a lot of great things happening with the Keep That Same Energy program. We hope to see you on August the 12th for the third and last iteration of this summer series. Thank you all so much again for joining.
One more thing.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I have one organizing task for everybody. Your organizing task will, when you come to the August session, bring one person with you. So in order to get one person to follow you, you got to reach out to 10 people. That's usually how it goes. And 9 of them going to disappoint you. Well, 5 of them going to tell you no. 4 of them going to say, yeah, I got you. I'm going to try my best. But one person is actually going to show up. So the anticipation is to have 40 people. So if everybody on this call brings one person, then we'll reach that goal.
Yes, thank you for that, Mike. And you just reminded me of something that I wanted to remember. Dwayne and Rachel, who is on his team, have graciously created a personal action plan. So as you are thinking about actions that you can take to make a difference in your own communities, we want you to maybe use this personal action plan as a template for that.
Yes.
So we encourage you to utilize that as a tool. I posted it here. We will also post it in the follow-up email to be built to this meeting tonight. If there's nothing else, there's no other announcements. Thank you again for joining us, everyone. Change the world.